figured we could look at Pence. Where did it all go wrong? I remember, for those of you who've watched me for years, I told you he reminded me of the preacher personality type. Preachers are known to have a belief system. They don't like to get out of it. So I'm curious to see what his body language is saying these days. Now, this one is shortly after the inauguration of Biden. And then we're going to look at a more recent one as things have come to pass. And I'm hoping to get an insight into his brain.
Mr. Vice President, thank you very much for talking with us.
Good to see you, Judy.
Let me start with the news this weekend, and there's been praise from all corners for the U.S. military, intelligence community, the president, since he announced this successful raid in Syria, killing al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS. My question for you is, does this mean the threat from ISIS and the ideology it represents is now lessened?
Well, we believe it does. But let me begin by saying, as the world learned Sunday morning, this weekend was a great weekend.
So as you watch Pence from 3 years ago, he's always in portrayal. Every time I see him, he's in portrayal, which goes with the preacher mentality. They got to sell it. But anyways, his eyes come in like exaggerated, false emotion. See that bridge between the eyes over the nose, always in. He's rocking back and forth. Soft body language, but in portrayal because, one, it's lasting too long and it's inappropriate for what is. And I say that because they're talking about a success of a military operation. You would expect to see some form of relief. But instead, we have a man who's portraying concern.
The president's decision to remove troops from patrolling the border of Syria and the Turkish border had no impact on the capability, as we demonstrated this weekend, of moving this incredibly successful assault that brought the most wanted man in the world to justice.
This incredibly successful assault, and you see that same movement in the eyes, everything coming in. He's feigning concern as if it was relief, but it doesn't match, obviously. So I want you to see that from times past when Pence truly loved Donald Trump. This is Pence explaining why Trump and him have gone their separate ways.
So you have forgiven him, but from what I read in your book and other interviews you've done, it doesn't sound like he ever apologized. And we know from testimony that...
So he talks about, it doesn't seem like Trump apologized. He went from being towards him in the beginning of this snippet to now moving away and looking towards the audience. So he wants to get away from Trump being accused of not apologizing.
He gave the impression to...
You also see, again, those same movements with the eyes. He's got it all squished in. Concern. It's all portrayal.
His top White House aides that were there when the crowd was chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," he said something along the lines of, according to testimony under oath, maybe they're right about you. So I come from a different faith tradition that also believes in forgiveness, but it also believes in people seeking forgiveness when they have done wrong to someone.
Well, Jake, I don't know what was happening at the White House. I was at a loading dock at the U.S. Capitol building working the problem and doing my level best to help facilitate the arrival of security personnel to quell the violence. But what I can tell you is in the 5 days following January 6th, I made no effort to contact the president. He had said the things publicly that I believe needed to be said, committing to a peaceful transfer of power.
So you see one eyebrow raised. That's more portrayal because it's not talking with him. It's just raised. It's controlled. You see the same thing with the eyes coming together. The concern. Now we'll go back to the other video because I want you to see a contrast.
It's a tribute to the decisive leadership of our Commander-in-Chief, President Donald Trump.
So you say it's less of a threat, ISIS and the ideology behind ISIS. Does that mean
So you see this concern here. That's what we're going to name this, the concern look. So concerning.
Decision to move U.S. troops out of northern Syria is now more justified?
Well, let me say first, we think...
He comes in a little bit more with that concerned face. He shifts in his chair.
The elimination of al-Baghdadi, the active leader of ISIS.
And then it's gone. So now we have what I would call his center of truth. This is where he doesn't have to portray concern. He doesn't have to sell what he's saying. He doesn't have to sell the belief system.
Will have a measurable impact on that terrorist organization. That being said,
Unfortunately, it cut. But you see that measurably, eyebrows go up and down quickly just on that word. They're not stuck through words.
let me address your question specifically. President's made it clear that when our troops went into Syria,
and then we're back to concern. So we'll go back to the other video.
you said the things publicly that I believe needed to be said, committing to a peaceful transfer of power, condemning the violence that had taken place. But when his daughter Ivanka and son-in-law came to my office, as I write in So Help Me God, and asked on that following Monday if I'd be willing to sit down with the president.
So as we watch this, we are seeing continuous the concern look that doesn't match anything of emotion.
I told them I wasn't looking for a meeting, but if he had something to say to me, I'd hear him out. And I walked down to the Oval Office that you've been to many times, into that back hallway in the small dining room where the president and I had spent so many productive hours working through issues at home.
And this is the preacher part. He's very eloquent in how he speaks. The Oval's office, which you yourself have been down many times. And I sat down in that wonderful chair, blah, blah, blah. You get it. He's adding words to his speech to make it more like poetry.
Home and abroad, the progress that we had made for a stronger, more prosperous country. A lot of it had happened over that small dining room table. But I walked into the room and the President's Chief of Staff was present, but he quickly left. The President looked up at me and he asked if Karen and Charlotte were okay. And I said tersely, "They're fine, Mr. President." And he said, "Were you scared?" And I said, "No, I was angry. I was angry about the difference."
Now he's got his angry face. It's the concerned look with a solemn mouth. It's very tight, corner drawn back, not soft.
Differences we had, and I told him seeing those people ransacking the Capitol infuriated me.
It infuriated him, and the one eyebrow goes up. With Pence, we are constantly watching portrayal. That's all you see. Someone who's very good at speaking beautifully and constantly in portrayal. I dare say if we had not seen more of what we see now from transition to this, we probably would have never known that he is a chameleon. Because unless you get these people to show different emotions and other things, that becomes their baseline and it is what you expect to see. But thankfully, this fool speaks.
If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to learn more about analysing body language, there is a video course available on Mandy's website for Gold subscribers.